Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to AutoTalk.com. I am Christian Moe, your host today, and we're going to do another driving review. If you can hear that V8 roar, we're in a 2015 Mustang GT.
For 2016, the Ford Mustang has a new design that takes the previous shape and sharpens it up. There are deep sculpting lines down the body, a deeper grille, big nostrils on the hood, and the headlamps look angry and menacing. There's still some classic touches that remain, like the triple bar taillights, but overall this is a much more aggressive Mustang than the old model. The 5.0 badge on the side signifies that this is a GT, and it comes powered by Ford's Coyote V8, which now makes 435 horsepower. Our car also has the track pack, which includes upgraded alloy wheels and big Brembo brakes. Is this the best Mustang yet? It certainly looks the best.
So just like the exterior design of this new Mustang, the interior is new and revised, but still very familiar. So we have these nice dual gauges up front, big and large, one for my speedo, one for my tack. Got some gauges up here on the dash. Everything is just sort of the way it always has been in the Mustang. It's all within easy reach. It all looks nice, has that nice little retro cue with a bit of modern touches, but it's still a Mustang. If you've got a 2005 and up, or if you've got one of the 2011 and up, like, you're gonna get in here and you're gonna feel familiar, but it will be new. So it's kind of a nice little trick that they've played. But a couple of things that are different for this one. So this is the highest level GT you can get. This is premium trim, and I've got all kinds of options and goodies. Let's start with the best piece on the entire car, and that is these seats. These nice, big, deep leather Recaro buckets. It's like a $1,500 option, and if you're even slightly short, like I am, it makes getting into and out of the car almost impossible because the bolster comes so close to the steering wheel when I have it in the right position that I have to like slither out of it, and I almost fall out and I look like an idiot, or you have to slide the seat back and forth every time you go to get in. And it sounds like a huge pain in the butt, but these seats are amazing. They are easily one of the best pairs of seats I've ever had in any car that anyone has ever brought me, like ever. I would sooner rip out the thrones in a GTR and slap a set of these in. They are that good. The bolsters are super deep and super stiff, and there's just the right amount of bolstering on the thighs, and like just the seating position's good, and they're multi-adjustable. It's all manual adjustments to save weight, but it's multi-adjustable, so you can get set just right in these seats. And when you have a helmet on, like I know you're probably used to seeing Mustangs with like the really pointy, jutty headrests. Well, this one, when you have a helmet on, helmet sits just right against the headrest like it should, so you're not fiddling with that thing or having to lean forward. Fits perfect. It's amazing. I love them. I want to buy a whole set of these and turn them into office chairs and dining room chairs and everything else. I want them to be everywhere in my home. They also, of course, have the nice Recaro script stitched into them, so that's cool. They do have the cut, so if you wanted to gut this thing and put a cage in it, you've already got attachments for your harness. But aside from that, like, they're just comfy. They're covered in nice leather. It's not the softest stuff in the world, but it feels sturdy. It feels like it should last, especially on the side bolster, which again, as you have to slide across the thing to get in and out of it every time. I'm really happy that there's lots of stitching here, and the side bolsters feel really sturdy. It feels like it's really thick leather. On to other little gizmos and goodies I have in this wonderful little cabin. I have the sync system, and I have the voice-activated navigation system, and I can do, you know, apps and all that sort of stuff with my Ford Touch. I still don't like my Ford Touch. I don't. It's sort of wonky. I don't like how I have to get to menus to find things I want. You know, a lot of the climate control stuff is now open on the dash, but there are still a few things you have to go into this weird touchscreen menu to get to, and it annoys me. I don't want to have to fiddle with the touchscreen to change my climate control stuff. But it's gotten a lot better than it used to be. It works quicker than it used to. Some of the functions are easier to find than they used to be, so I appreciate that. I have the GT Performance package on this car. So in my little dash thing here in the center, I've got a little set of gauges. We have a little computer screen called Gauge Mode. Shows you my air-fuel ratio, cylinder head temp, inlet air temp, oil temp, voltage, and of course how far I am until empty and my tire pressures. I also have track apps. Track apps let me track my 0 to 60 time, my 0 to 100 time, and then those two numbers going backwards, so braking distances in time, 100 to 0 and 60 to 0. It's also where you activate line lock, which is a burnout mode that basically locks the front tires in place and lets you do hellaciously huge burnouts for 15 seconds. And then we have launch control, which is sort of a dumb launch control compared to a lot of other cars, but it is cool on a manual car. So the way launch control does is it lets you pick an RPM between 3 grand and 4,500, and it does it in like 100 or 250 intervals or something, and it picks that RPM. When you activate launch control, then all you have to do is hit the button, peg the throttle, and it'll let the car rev up to that exact point, and then you can dump the clutch. So it won't do a lot of fancy computer algorithms like other launch control systems will, and like the GTR and stuff like that, but it's a really great sort of soft way to figure out how to launch a car in a manual without having to actually fiddle with the pedals yourself and try and get your RPM range just right when you're trying to launch. So I appreciate it. Otherwise, it's a standard Ford, GT cabin in here. So I've got the leather, and I've got this nice little, looks like turned metal. I mean, it's plastic, but it's got a nice little look to it. Metal on the door handles, metal here in the center of the steering wheel from a nice big Mustang logo. It's big and shiny, and it's chrome. Everything in here just sort of looks nice. What feature I really like down here on the dash, you have these really big, like airplane style switches to alter the settings on the car. So this one offers my driving mode. So I've got normal, Sport Plus, track, snow and wet. Put that back to Sport Plus. There's one for altering the steering feel. So you have comfort, sport, and normal. I've left it in sport the entire time that I've had it. Makes it a little bit heavier, a little bit nicer. It seems to give you just a bit more feedback over some of the bumps, especially when you're driving it hard. It gives you just a bit more info about what the car is doing, allows you to react a little bit better. I have a full suite of controls on the steering wheel, which, I do enjoy because I don't have to look down and fiddle with things. Volume, then control for my track apps, Bluetooth, all that sort of stuff's handled here. This car does have some extra safety options. So I've got blind spot monitoring and a backup camera, and I've got a little rear detection thing, so when I'm trying to back up, it'll tell me if I'm going to crash into a car. I also have radar guided cruise control, which thankfully you can turn that off and just use it as normal cruise control, but it's buried in the menus. So if you aren't a fan of radar guided cruise controls, you should dig through these menus and shut it off. But the interior is, again, just a standard Ford Mustang interior. The back seats are kind of small and cramped. Front seats are fairly spacious. There is a lot more room in here than what it feels like you get in the competitors like the Challenger or the Camaro. It's much easier to see out of than especially the Camaro. And it's just sort of good. Small, light, compact, seems like a good place to spend some time. But of course, this car isn't about being in it or how comfy it is or what kind of equipment it has. Oh, by the way, speaking of equipment, Shaker audio system sounds great. Big sub in the trunk, makes good thumpy noises. But the real point of this car is driving. Ta-da, you want to drive your Mustang. And driving it is damn good. So underneath the hood, because this is the GT, I have Ford's new Coyote 5-liter V8. For 2015, power from this beast has been pumped up to 435 raging ponies. Torque sits right at 400 pound-feet. So anytime you want to, you stand on the loud pedal, get all this noise and this swell of speed. Woo! And it gathers speed quicker than you think it does and quicker than it feels, so you have to be careful that you don't get arrested. That may have been 20 over by accident, but it was only for a second. So yeah, the engine feels good. The Coyote's been a sweetheart ever since they released it back in 2011. Really great motor, super strong, super sturdy. Takes well to upgrades and mods. If you're into that sort of thing, you can throw a blower on it without much issue at all. It's not my favorite Ford engine anymore. That honor would go to the new flat plane crank V8 in the GT350. But aside from that, it's about as good as a V8 motor can get. Again, it's very sturdy, makes lots of low-end grunt, feels great, makes a good noise. And of course, in this car, it's mated to a 6-speed manual transmission, which is fan-freaking-tastic. So throws super short, super crisp. Makes rowing through them quickly a breeze. Makes a good sort of little snap noise when you slot it into gear too. Feels very clicky and snickety. I like that. I'm a bit iffy on the clutch. Granted, My clutch skills are slightly lazy because my Volkswagen Golf, which is the car that I mainly drive, has a very, very light and sloppy clutch. Anyone can drive that car. This one has a very tight, very smally spaced, and very tightly sprung clutch. So I had to get sort of used to having a really tight clutch again. But once you really get into it, it's really nice to have, especially if you're trying to beat it down a back road somewhere. The pedals are spaced just right and the clutch is short enough that you can do really quick shifts while in the middle of a turn. If you're coming into brake, to throttle blip, super easy. You can do throttle braking, really nice. And of course, with the really short clutch, you can get your timing just right to get that rev match. Actual steering itself, with handling of the car. So steering wheel responds super quickly, front end moves around. My only real complaint though is, and I don't know if it's the tires or if it's the actual chassis, but there's just a slight bit of hesitation front end to rear. So you will point the car, you'll turn the wheel, and the back end sort of waits just a second to catch up to you. So the front end dives and the back end there's a slight moment where it has to sort of catch up to what you're doing. It's not a big deal most of the time, especially like 80% driving. Like if you're really pushing hard, it's only slightly noticeable. Once you push past that 8/10 mark, it can really start to cause some issues. Left to right body roll, again, is really well, sorted. The car handles fairly flatly, but you just have that weird sort of back end catching up to the front end thing, and it can sort of catch you off guard when you're really pushing the car hard on a really tight road. Even though left to right body roll is controlled, there is a semi-fair bit of front to rear body roll. It does that sort of Mustang muscle car thing where when you stand on the gas, it wants to lift the nose up. And while it kind of feels cool and it looks cool to see, when you're driving down a tight road, it sort of causes some problems. It seems like every time I go to take a really tight bend, squat the brake, car comes sliding to a halt. By the way, I've got those big Brembos on this because of the track pack. Those Brembos are great. But slam on the brake, car comes sliding down to a halt, cut speed very quickly, very efficiently, slot it into your lower gear, go around the corner. As you see the exit and you hit that apex, you start to gas it to get out of the turn, and it makes that front end lift, and the front end wants to wash. So there's a lot more understeer than you would expect from a car that is a 435 horsepower rear-wheel drive muscle car. It's really sort of a odd experience. Of course, if you want to, you can just boot the throttle, slide the ass end around, and take care of that. But it's really hard to get that balance just right. Either you're going to understeer or you're going to oversteer. It's hard to get sort of a neutral handling in it. But aside from that, it's a great little handling machine. I've been up to the Dragon with it a few times. Did surprisingly well. Chased a couple of my Miata friends up there, and they were all extremely impressed with how well I could keep up with these are like autocross prepped cars. They're on 9-inch wide, basically racing slicks that are barely DOT legal, full coilover suspension and stuff. And my hefty little Mustang here could keep up with them, even though it weighs 1,000 pounds more. So handling is a lot better than you would expect. I think if you were to put this thing on a set of really sticky tires, because right now it's on a set of Performance All Seasons, but if you got some like really sticky track rubber, I bet you this thing would be an absolute animal any track or back road. So I don't have time to do that, sadly, but it is something I would love to. Otherwise, for day-to-day driving, the Mustang's just a fine little commuter machine. Noise from the motor is loud when you want it to be, but fairly subdued when you don't. So right now I've got it in 6th gear, I'm cruising along at 50 miles an hour, and I'm turning under 1,500 RPMs, right? So it's just, motor's barely moving, barely making noise. You do get a fair bit of tire roar. Blame that on the really wide tires. That's just a thing you're gonna have to deal with. But aside from the tire roar and the slight bit of wind noise, the car is a lot quieter than it should be. So it won't drive you nuts driving to work. Again, the stereo is really nice, so if you find the volume of the tires and the wind and the exhaust to be too much, just crank up some tunes. You'll be fine. The stereo will drown it out without much volume at all. Then when you want noise, you press that gas pedal, and it just sings. God, it's such a good car. Fuel economy, this is where things start to go down in the gutter for people who want to use this as their only car and use it as a commuter. Window sticker says, what does the window sticker say? Is it 25, I believe? So yeah, window sticker has us at 25 highway, 15 city, 19 combined. I've averaged about 18. So car is thirsty. On the first full tank of gas they brought it to me with, I only made it 185 miles before I had to put fuel into it. Granted, I was driving it quickly down lots of back roads, so I was beating on it. But less than 200 miles on a tank of gas is not great. If you have a long commute, this could be like a tank of gas every other day kind of car. So that's a bit sad and depressing. But you get this awesome slab of America, and you get that huge, mighty V8 with all the noise, and you get an actually great handling car that is a borderline sports car. In fact, if it wasn't for that front end lift that sort of makes it plow into corners, like, this would be a legit sports car. Like, it's that good. The new independent rear suspension takes care of mid-corner bumps surprisingly well. On overall feel, that new independent rear is maybe not quite as good as the old straight axle, but this is their first year, and the old straight axle had been around for 100 million years. So if you give Ford just a year or two to really sort this thing out, and it'll be hands down way better than the old live rear axle ever was. So I think that's about all I've got to say about this car. Interior feels good, options are nice, the motor's great, transmission's great, clutch is good once I got the hang of it. You know, the only problem I have with this car is the price tag. With all of these options, including the $1,500 radar guided cruise control and the $1,500 seats and the big brake package and all that sort of stuff, this thing rings up at $45,060 before destination. So destination slaps an extra $800 onto that thing. So this is a $46,000 car. And that's, quite frankly, I think a lot of money to ask for a Mustang. It's not a lot of money to ask for a sports car with this level of performance, but a lot of people, I think, might have a hard time getting over the fact that it says Mustang on the badge. With this kind of money, you can get a nice BMW 3 Series. You can get the Q50S I had last week. There are a lot of machines you can get for that kind of cash, and getting one with Ford on the key fob and a big Mustang emblem in the middle of the steering wheel is going to be kind of a tough sell. Now that said, the base Mustang GT is only 36 grand. So get the base Mustang, get the brake package and the seats, you're looking at less than $40,000, and the car will be phenomenal. That's the way I'd spec it out and option it myself. Also, if you can, like, they don't make it anymore, but if Ford ever brings back Grabber Blue, get it in Grabber Blue. Best color in the world for any Mustang. But thank you guys for hanging out with me. I know it's been kind of a long video, but I had a lot I wanted to say about this car. Once again, I am Christian Moe. This is AutoTalk.com. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. If you want to see more reviews like this, please go ahead and subscribe to that AutoTalk.com YouTube channel. Hit that little subscribe button right there. If you don't like this video, well, please go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know. We want to know why. We want to make these things better, and the only way to do that is for you to let us know what we are doing wrong. Otherwise, like I said, I am Christian Moe. This has been a driving review for AutoTalk.com. And I hope to see you guys next week. Thank you for hanging out with me.